Hey guys, Justin here with JHart Modelworks. It is time for another update on the Meng 124 scale GT40 that I'm doing as a buddy build with Chris from CD Scale Models. I know it feels like I just put one of these out, pretty much because I just put one of these out. That video was not really meant to come out on Wednesday. It was meant to come out on Sunday. I went to SuperCon this weekend, Saturday, in Arlington. I had a fun time. I did bring home a couple of awards. I'll probably do a video on that sometime later. It was also the wife's birthday weekend, so I just didn't get a whole lot of time to edit, and I could have waited and put that video out this weekend, but I didn't really want to wait that long because I did have some progress that I wanted to show you. And I have progress I wanted to show you this week, so I wanted to go ahead and get another video out this weekend to get us back on schedule. So there's not a whole lot to go over. I mean, there's not a ton of progress, but there is some progress and some, just some stuff I want to share with you guys. So let's go ahead and get this camera flipped around and get into it. Alright guys, so bear with me. You're probably going to hear some throat clearing and some sniffling. It is allergy season. I'll try to edit as much of that out as I can. We're going to go ahead and start with these wheels, since that's pretty much where we left off. And you're probably saying, Justin, they look exactly the same, but they don't. If you remember, I said I really wish those centers were just a little bit darker. I can't respray them because I've already glued the kickoffs in place. So what I did instead was I just hit them with a wash with some Tamiya black panel liner, and it tones them down and darkens them up just enough that they accent a little better and they look just slightly darker and they don't disappear with the trim ring. That trim ring is Mr. Hobby Super Metallics Duraluminum. I know I said Alclad in the last video. It's actually Mr. Hobby, and normally it's a bit brighter than this. It's almost like a dull chromey color, and usually these would stand out more. Not sure what happened, but they kind of blended a bit. The panel liner really helped to set off the centers a little bit. I also, these were in the last video, I just forgot to mention them. I've drilled out a hole. There is kind of a little nub for the air valve, and I kind of cleaned that up. I used my chisels to remove it, and I drilled a hole, 1/2 millimeter hole, and glued in some 1/2 millimeter spring steel to get me some tire valves. So I'm much happier with the wheels now. This is just dry fit. I cannot glue this in yet. Can't glue this in until you get the engine in. You can't glue the engine in. The whole build is just chained like this. Like, you can't finish the interior until you get that back wall in. You can't do the back wall until you get the engine in. You can't work on the engine until you get the back half of the suspension, the lower control arm stuff, in. You really also can't work on the engine until you get this bay in place. You can't get the tub in place until you get the front suspension finished. So it's just a whole chain of events. So like I explained to Chris, this whole build is like trying to follow a single noodle through a whole bowl of spaghetti. It just kind of weaves and winds on top of itself. But we do have our front suspension complete. That all looks fantastic. This should articulate. Mine does not, because it's this side. Maybe. No, I think it's this one. Yeah, it is this one. I broke the little C off on here. Now, I have said repeatedly, the tolerances on this kit are ridiculously tight, and in this situation, they are too tight. This should articulate, but you have almost no articulation to these wheels anyhow because of how tight this steering bar sits on those pegs. You turn it more than that much, and it puts stress on that little arm and snaps off the connector. And the connectors are so tight, they're already stressed just trying to clip them on. So they're already have been, suffered some trauma. I mean, they weren't broken, they weren't cracked, but, you had strained the plastic a little bit just getting it wrapped around here. And then I tried to articulate it, and when you do, it leans against it, and it basically pries it and snaps the arm off. So, in my opinion, they should have made these arms a bit looser. If I were to build this kit again, before I added those arms on, I would take some drill bits and I would drill that out just a little. Like, not where it clips, because you want it to hold on, but the hole around it needs a little bit of play. So I just went ahead and glued my front suspension in place. I'm not going to articulate the wheels anyhow. My wheels typically face straight, even anyhow when I'm displaying them. We have our radiator and our tow hooks are in place. Now, several people I have seen complain that there's a problem fitting the body over here, and I have no problem at all. Now, the reason I have no problem at all is because when I was prepping the body, I sanded the insides just a little bit and thinned them down. And then when I was prepping the radiator, I sanded down the sides of the radiator just a little bit, and I sanded down the sides of these tow hooks to thin them out slightly. And that gave me enough play that I don't have a problem fitting my body over here. The electric fans are not part of the kit. I have 3D printed them. I forget who I got them from, but they are from Occults 3D. So that is a really nice big block electric fan. I did scale it up a little bit. And then I added this bar on the side to look like the side of the radiator. And I added some fittings in there. And I ran those fittings to some braided line from ProTech, and I just kind of ran them up here. Technically they should go down there. But I didn't realize that until, I had already got them glued into place, and I don't want to mess this all up because it will be a mess. So I'm just going to leave them there. I've got something else going on that's going to kind of cover this up anyhow, so it's not that big of a deal. There's a little bit more work in this engine bay that I'm going to do. I am 3D designing a part to go in here that's going to fill up a good deal of this, but technically the radiator hoses and the oil lines should be running through here, and that should actually be open. We do have our tub in place. We've got our fire extinguisher, and our pedals are in there. The clamps worked beautifully. I don't know if I discussed this in the last video, but just putting those clamps down, everything glued down nice and tight. Everything is perfect. And so far, I've even test fit with the dash, because I've got the dash fit kind of dry assembled. And I have, so far, no issues with that. And also with the back wall in place, I still don't have any kind of interference issues. The back wall. I cannot glue the back wall in until I get the engine in place, but I did get kind of started on it. I have drilled a hole. I kind of need to paint that black because there's a kind of a cap there. This is a coolant reservoir of some sort, and it runs down to here. Now these little parts here, I didn't know what they were. So I tried researching. I had a very hard time researching these parts because every car, even the original GT40s, every one of these cars was built differently. The race cars were built differently. The street cars were built differently. None of these cars are exactly the same. Then you run into all the aftermarket cars, cars like Super Performance, all the replica cars, and they have completely different components as well. So trying to find out what these were was a pain. I ended up joining a forum for GT40s called gt40s.com. I posted up a post in there. I was like, hey guys, I'm a model builder. I don't own one of these cars, but I'm trying to get some information. What the heck are these? And, you know, there's also, you know, there's a big tank in the front of some cars. It's not in some other cars. You know, could you guys just kind of point me in the right direction? Because I'm having a hard time doing the research. These guys are freaking awesome. They started to be like, yeah, this is what these are. These are electric fuel pumps. This is the brand. This is how they're plumbed. Here's some photos from my car. Here's a photo from my website. I sell these to the other guys. You know, just these guys are just like throwing, like, here's the SAE white papers on the GT40s for reference material. These guys are friggin' cool. So yeah, they're like, yeah, those are electric fuel pumps. Oh, and by the way, you have them installed upside down. So I'm like, what do you mean I have them installed upside down? I have them installed exactly the same way the kit tells me to install them. The kit says to install these with that little arm thing pointing up. They're like, dude, we build these cars. You've got them installed upside down. And sure enough, when I looked at them, and I went and looked up the actual fuel pump, these are installed upside down. This is a little cap, and they should be kind of black. And this down here, there's a little, I mean, they're literally, the kit tells you to put this part in upside down. So if you're building this, you can either build it the way the kit tells you, or build it the way the guys who actually build these cars do it. And when you do, it sits perfectly flat, just like that. So I had to cut them off and flip them upside down. Another thing about this kit, I had to shave this notch and cut it down. If I did not sand it to thin it out, it would not fit in that opening. It just would not. It sat like this the whole time. It just would not go in until I thinned that part down and cut it down a bit. And then once I got it thin enough and I cut the part down because it extends just a little bit too far this way and it's too thick. So once I cut it back a bit, I got it to fit in there and it just drops in perfect. So currently I'm at the point where I need to start working on the engine. And before I can start working on the engine, I need to start at least on the bottom half of the suspension. So my next steps are going to be to get those lower control arms done. Probably going to get all the suspension parts painted up and then get the engine assembled, at least the block assembled, and get all the engine components painted up so that I can start getting all this together and seeing how it's all going to fit and making sure that I'm not going to have any clearance issues anywhere. So that's probably my plans for this weekend into next week. I know I didn't have a whole lot done this week. Like I said, it was the wife's birthday weekend and I was at a show, so I didn't get a whole lot of build time, but that is where we're at. I am working on 3D designing some parts because there are some things that are missing on this kit that I want to add, and hopefully I will be able to update you on these on the next video. So that's it for this week, guys. As always, thanks for hanging out with me. I appreciate you watching the videos, and I will catch you on the next one.